I bought my first wig when Mo was diagnosed with breast cancer and she had started losing her hair. She and I went to Wig Shop, and I remembered being very impressed by the quality and selection. They looked like real human hair. They were more expensive than what I'd budgeted for, but the sky was the limit for Mo, and it was important that she walked out of Lemons feeling pretty, or at the very least, amused. I remember being nervous when we walked in. Seeing all those wigs on cartoon mannequin faces in the windows was a little creepy. But the people behind the counter gave us big smiles and encouraged us to try on every wig in the store. Hours later, we rolled out of there with 4 wigs, fake eyelashes, and bedazzled press-on nails. Paul had been dead for only a month when I found Jonathan, my grown-ass son, in my walk-in closet. I heard a wig rustling off of one of the 6 styrofoam heads. What was he doing in there? Trying one on? My knees trembled and my heart galloped thinking of him finding my collection. A waist-length platinum job, a short red number with bangs, some curly brown locks, a Dolly Parton, a Crystal Gale, and Britney's pink alter ego. Instead of walking backwards out the door like I had intended, I don't know what came over me. I shouted, "Haven't you taken enough?" I almost expected my son to come out with Virginia on his head, my long platinum beauty that flipped up at the bottom, because that's the kind of relationship we had. We were able to joke about the most serious things. But when he walked out empty-headed, he looked stunned, pale, his blue eyes glazed over. He couldn't even look at me. His own mother, who had bailed him out of jail twice? Usually he had something clever to say, but he just put his hands in his pocket and his sour mouth turned down with disgust. "Get out," I said. "Get out this minute." That look he gave me, I can see it now. Who was he to judge me? I didn't want to keep the wigs in a box anymore. They get all bent out of shape, and they're never really the same if you don't treat them properly. Why was he on my side of the house anyway? Can't a 56-year-old woman have some privacy? Haven't I suffered enough? 2 dead husbands and a troubled son? Most women my age have grandchildren. I never put any pressure on him. Now I know it must have been hard losing his father in the middle of the night. I can still remember when the police knocked on the door. Those words, car, tree, under the influence, a woman passenger who had survived without a scratch. That couldn't be my husband. I remember saying those words over and over. I was 26 years old. There had to be some kind of mistake. The police officer kept repeating my husband's name. He finally had to wrap my fingers around his driver's license, and when I saw his picture, I started crying. I suppose I was screaming. Now that I think about it, you could have called me hysterical. When Jonathan walked into the living room, I guess I should have composed myself, thought about his feelings first. A 6-year-old boy shouldn't have seen his mother in that state. He shouldn't have had to figure things out by himself. But that was a long time ago, 30 years ago. When Terry comes over in the middle of the night, I don't think Jonathan could hear us. I moved my bedroom to the other side of the house next to the pool. I had to. We couldn't afford going to hotels anymore. Even the cheap ones add up. Plus, neither of us like checking in at the front desk. Dallas is big, but it's a small town, and I've gotten a little vocal these days. I don't know what's gotten into me. I've never really understood sex before. Just went through the motions, hoping it'd be over soon. It must be those wigs. They make me want to scream. The silky hair that hangs down my back and covers my breasts, even the short ones that tuck under my ear, they make me feel so giddy. I finally know what this body is for. I don't even mind being older. With my wigs on, I'm just pretty hair. Last week, when Terry was over, he picked up a picture of Jonathan and said, "Right off the bat, I could tell he was yours." He may have gotten my cheekbones and my almond-shaped eyes, I replied, but he's all his father. He tans like me, though. In the summer, we're the same shade. Look, here's a picture. See his glossy eyes? Always look like he's just been stung by a bee. Like the time he was playing in the backyard by the Black-Eyed Susans, he used to pick up those daisy-like things and run in circles. The golden flowers matched his straw hair. I remember seeing the yellow jacket flying around his head, and instead of crashing into his shoulder, it landed in the dark center of the flower. He had reached for butterflies before, orange and red, so why would this be different? From my poolside chair, I watched him grab for the yellow and black stripes. I saw the bee land on the webbing between his thumb and index finger. I watched the pain travel up his tan little arm to his clenched jaw, and just when he was about to wail, he looked at me and we locked eyes. And instead of screaming, he just held it in, spent his whole life holding it in. He had to be about 8 years old or so because we had already moved into Paul's house. I remember because after he got stung, I ran to hug him, and Mo went into the house to get some ice. I never told anyone this before. The night the police officer asked me if I wanted to know the name of the woman who was in the car, I remember shaking my head, beating my hands on the policeman's chest. The police officer trying to calm me down by putting me in a bear hug. But it was printed in the paper the very next day. I didn't know that name, had no intention of ever looking it up. I did keep those clippings in the album, and when Jonathan got older, I let him see the scrapbooks. I watched his face when he read about the woman, saw him wondering who she was and how strange it was that someone had been next to him when he died, and it was neither of us. But he never did ask, so I never did say anything about it. Figured it was all there in black and white. Jonathan's missing now. It's been a little over a week since he's found my collection. Sometimes I wonder what I could have done differently, and all I can come up with is that I did the best I could. If Mo was still with us, I would call her. She would know what to do. After the accident, Mo drove Jonathan to school on the days I couldn't get up. I know she's watching over him right now, keeping him safe, telling him to do the right thing and go back home to his mama. I don't want to burden Terry with all this. He has his own kids and a handicapped wife. All I can do is sit here and smoke cigarettes until either the police come knocking again or he walks through that door. Speaking of doors, I lock the closet door. None of that matters anymore. Silly wigs, making me feel joy like a girl again. Woo!